Oh, what's going on, GameLeapers? This is the Jizz, and in today's upload, we're going to be taking you through the low elo tier list for 12.5b, and this patch is going to be around for another week or so make sure you stick around for the whole video. We'll also be talking about why some of these champions are in the tiers they're in. But just before we do get into the video, one thing you guys have to do before you get into your next game is to download the Professor app linked in the description, because it allows you to quickly import the best room page used from the best players in the world on the champion you're picking. You don't have to make the room page, just one click of a button and bang, you're ready to go. But that's not all, because the app also allows you to scout your opponent, and the app will give you their stats, how well they play their champion, so you can know more about your opponent than they know about themselves. And the app also gives you an in-game overlay, so you can compare your CS and your kill participation to your rank or even challenger players like Faker. And there's a reason why 3 million people have downloaded this free application, guys. It's because it works. So get around it in Season 12. Those links are in the description. Now, the tiers for this video are as follows. We have the most broken tier, which for this video, this is called Janet because she's so busted. And then we have your standard S, A, B, and C tier. And then the worst tier, which represents those champions who you just should not go near. For this particular tier list this time, this is called Rise. Now, let's start in the top lane and reveal the 12.5b low elo tier list. And you can see that in the Janet tier, there is Garen, Trundle, Urgot, and Yorick. So 3 of these champions are some of the dirtiest abusers of Hullbreaker in the game at the moment. And this item, especially in lower elos, is an absolute stomper because it gives you so much power in the split push and makes you very hard to deal with. So for Trundle, Urgot, Yorick, they all have the potential to build this massive stat stick of an item and just be unkillable. And it's a little bit weird for Urgot because he does count as a ranged champion, and a couple of patches ago Hullbreaker did get nerfed for ranged champions. So that just goes to show when Urgot in bronze and above has around a 53% win rate after that Hullbreaker range nerf, it goes to show how good this champion is. And as for Garen being in this tier list, well, he's just Garen. He's always going to be good in low elo, and despite lots of other bruisers and fighters being strong at the moment, Garen still boasts, get this, the highest win rate from bronze and above in the top lane. So we have to put a bit of respect on the Beyblade. Now, elsewhere in other tier lists, you might see Riven in the top tier, Camille in the top tier, but in lower elo, players just don't really have that great understanding of these champions, and they can't necessarily play them at the peak potential, so they're going to miss out on a lot of what the champion offers. This is why Riven is in A tier, so she's still really good, you can still win on her, but just because of how much time and how much skill it takes to really master that champion, you're probably better off picking one of the champions in the S or Janet tier. And this is the same for Camille as well. She is in B tier. And unfortunately for one champion who got nerfed in this patch, he has his own tier, and this of course is Rise. And if you play Rise in the top lane, he was actually pretty decent before because of the tank setup, but this has been nerfed because of the passive nerf to Rise this patch. So please guys, if you're thinking of playing Rise, do not play him in the top lane. It is a death trap, and this is why he's in the worst tier, alongside Gwen, who has really fallen off since the nerfs a couple of patches ago, so it'd be a very wise idea to stay away from these two champions. Now let's move to the other solo lane in this game, this being the mid lane, and you can see that in the Janet tier we have Malzahar, Nico, Veigar, and Yasuo. These 4 champions are very dangerous in those lower echelons of play, simply because they're easy to execute on and also don't really have that many weaknesses. So you can probably blind pick these champions and be absolutely fine. And maybe another similarity between these 4 champions is that they go really well into champions who get up close and personal, and lots of people in lower elo don't really understand the range concept that much, so they're going to be headbutting you a lot more than people in higher elo. This gives short range champions like Malzahar, Veigar, and Yasuo, and even Nico to an extent because of her ultimate, a massive opportunity and almost punishing power, so when they do make that mistake in terms of their positioning, you can punish them better than anyone else. So this is why these 4 champions have incredibly good win rates in lower elos, and this is why they're in the Janet tier. Now, other champions who are similar to these, we can see these in S tier. So you have Akshan, Cho'Gath, Diana, Fizz, Aurelia, Katarina, Pantheon, Rumble, Yone. These champions love it when the enemy champion makes a mistake because they can punish them very quickly. But as far as the worst champions go that you guys can pick in the mid lane, well, one of them is of course Rise, because he has to be in his tier list, and also Azir. Unfortunately for Azir and solo queue, it's really much the same in lower elo, because a bit like Riven and Camille, the Emperor of Shurima takes way too long to master, and even though he does like champions who do get close range to him, it's just very hard to operate this champion in a solo queue environment because it takes time to scale. The laning phase as well, you probably have to play perfectly to give yourself a chance of winning, so it's really just not worth picking Azir in solo queue, so you're just better off picking another champion. And I'd also say to you guys, just be careful as well picking Kai'Sa in the mid lane. I know it really is flavor of the month, but the champion during the laning phase is incredibly weak. She only really starts to get going once she starts evolving her Q and her W, and by that point point, you might be 0-5, 0-6. You don't have that much power in the first 10-15 minutes of a game, which is when it really counts. So unless you know how to play the playstyle perfectly, it's a really big risk picking this champion if you want to win, that is. So if you want to have fun, go ahead, but her win rate being around 45% really tells the story. Now next up, let's head to the jungle and reveal this tier list. And in the Jana tier, we have Nocturne, Rammus, Shyvana, and Volibear, and these 4 champions in low elo are killing it, especially Shyvana. Because this champion with this new Frost 5 Demonic Embrace build, she is really starting to take over the game. Legit, she has one of the highest win rates out of any champion, not just in the jungle, and it's been a bit of a revelation. So I don't know if you guys have actually tried Shyvana this patch, but make sure you do. I wouldn't even be surprised if she gets nerfed in 12.6 because she is performing at such a high level. Just like the other champions here too. Nocturne, Rammus, Volibear, very solid champions. They have the best win rates, and in low elo it makes sense. These 3 champions can punish the enemy laner's mistakes, and if we go down to S tier, there are lots of similar champions to the one in the Jana tier. So we have a Mumu, Diana, Hecarim, Kha'Zix, Master Yi, Mordekaiser, Sejuani, Shaco, Trundle, Vi, Warwick, Zac. All of these champions can punish enemy mistakes. They can gank, they can fight the enemy jungler, they clear camps pretty well, and they also scale. So even if you are behind, you should be sweet because you're still going to be useful. And I think really the underrated pick out of all of these is Mordekaiser. This champion with Ghost in the jungle in bronze, silver, gold, platinum, you can actually dominate because no one's going to invade you because no one knows how to jungle. So you can just free farm, and for a scaling champ like Mordekaiser, you become very strong very quickly. And if you guys have tested this out or any of the other champions on this tier list, let us know in the comment section. Now elsewhere in the 12.5B jungle tier list, well, you can see that we have lots of champions in the C tier. So all of these picks, I'd really recommend just not playing in lower elos. So you can just pick one of these champions, and the problem with these champions is that they are either A, they just don't have enough power to compete with those champions above them, and B, they're just too mechanically intensive. So if we think Elise, Nidalee, Kiana, even Rek'Sai, these champions do require specific knowledge and obviously lots of practice to know the ins and outs of these champions because there are lots of them. So once again, unless you have time on your hands, it's probably worth just picking someone else. But again, if you guys do want to master any of these champions, the GameLeap website is just sitting there for you down below, so make sure you check it out. Now we've got 2 more tier lists to reveal to you guys in 12.5B, and both of these of course reside in the bot lane, so let's talk about the AD carry tier list first. And these champions, Miss Fortune, Vayne, Veigar, and Ziggs, these are the 4 best champs you can pick in lower elo because these champions love it when the enemy champions move like bots. So in lower elo, what most people are going to do, they're just going to run forward and backward in a straight line. They don't really have any lateral movement, so there's no sidestepping, it's just backward and forward like a bot. This means that for a champion like Miss Fortune with her Q and her ultimate, for a champion like Vayne who can use the angles to condemn these champions and also just stick to them, and for a champion like Veigar, we've kind of mentioned this before, he loves champions who get close to him. And in lower elo, people are definitely going to make the mistake of getting too close to their opponents, so Veigar can capitalize on this. And Ziggs of course, because if the enemy champion is only moving forwards and backwards, it makes it very easy to land your bombs. So these 4 champions are your best bet at winning in lower elo. Now below them we do have Ashe, who got buffed this patch, well kind of buffed anyway, and her win rate has definitely improved. This is why in lower elo anyway, she is in S tier. Now next to her we also have Kog'Maw, Sivir, and Yasuo. This dreaded champion that terrorizes low elo. Yes, he is insanely good as an AD carry because a bit like Veigar, he loves playing against players who don't understand what range means. So for Yasuo, the enemy champions are just way more accessible in lower elo, meaning you can do your dirty work and get kills and snowball and make them rage quit. And in this tier list, there are a few other champions who are actually in different tiers compared to our normal tier list we do. So the first of these is Senna. She's in A tier because she scales so well and people just don't know how to punish her during the laning phase. Even though her soul drop rate when she kills an enemy minion is down a lot, games go for longer in bronze, silver, gold elo, so you can get to the late game. So for this tier list, she is in the A tier with that 20% Q slow still. Now just below her, we also have Varus, who is typically in our C tier, and he's in the B tier, not really because of the buffs that came into his on hit and his ultimate damage, but really because of the lethality setup. Because Varus is a skilled shot champion in lower elo, people are going to run forwards and backwards, and that's it. There's no sidestepping, so landing your Q, landing your ultimate, it's very doable. But the issue is that he probably still doesn't pack enough of a punch to compete with the top tier AD carries. And unfortunately for this patch, this has been the case for Zeri. Ever since those nerfs came in, her win rate in lower elo has dropped over 3%, meaning it's around 46% overall. So unfortunately for all you Zeri mains out there, particularly in lower elo, this champion is pretty hard to play, just not worth it at the moment anyway. Hopefully next patch Riot might give her a few compensation buffs, because to be honest, she probably needs them, but we'll have to wait and see. And of course in your Rise tier, we have Aphelios, just the biggest toilet tier AD carry for solo queue that is, tiers. In higher elo, you might be able to pick him. In pro play, you might still be able to pick him, of course. But in solo queue and lower elo, just the absolute pit. Now, the last tier list we have, guys, is of course the supports. And to be honest, not much is actually changing here to our normal tier list, which is nice, I think. So in Janna tier, well, how can we not have Janna? She is the best support at the moment, close to a 55% win rate. You're joking. Now, we also have Sona and Soraka, and then we have Zyra. Zyra, because lots of these champions, you know, if you're a skill shotter, it's much easier to land your skill shots in lower elo. This is why we can also see Blitzcrank, Brand, Nami, Renata, Swain in the S tier alongside Shaco, because Shaco is another one of those champions who loves it when the enemy team gets close. This is going to enable your boxes and your ultimates clone to blow up and deal a ton of damage, so Shaco in lower elo is also very effective. But I will say there are two support who, because of their high skill ceiling, are very hard to play for players in lower elos, and these two are Bard and Thresh. So because there are some intricate and nuanced mechanics these champions have, and you really have to practice and get used to them, and experience is also a good teacher, so you have to rack up the games on them, you're probably better off in terms of your own time and also in terms of your win rate just to pick another champion. Like if you want to play a hook champion, you can just pick Blitzcrank. If you want to play a playmaking roaming support, well, you could probably just pick Blitzcrank as well, but hopefully you catch the Jizz's drift. And those were the low elo tier list, guys, for 12.5b. Let me know in the comments any thoughts you might have, and also make sure if you haven't already to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our season 12 daily uploads. And until tomorrow's video, this has been Coach Jizz.